Welcome back to the Present Fathers Podcast. This is a special episode. A near dear friend of mine is going to come share his story today. This is one you want to listen to. And so, Danny, welcome to Present Fathers Podcast. And let's go ahead and just get started with answering a very upfront question. And that is, how long has it been since you've had sex with your wife?
Over 4 years. It's probably less than 5, but it's definitely been that long.
And that's a long time. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, what in the world is going on here? And so, Danny, why don't at a very high level, you explain why that is, and then from there, we'll introduce you and talk about your story, okay?
Okay. Thanks, George. I'm very happy to be here. So thanks for having me. My wife has stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma of the vulva, which is cancer, basically. And she's been fighting this for now we're going on 5 years. It has unlayered us in a way that I could never see in our future. We've, been through a ton. We'll talk about that today, but it's fighting cancer at a young age or at any age is crazy. We have 2 young daughters. We've been through many jobs, locations, moves, all of these things, and we're still, to this day, fighting for her. And that's the reason that I answered the question the way I answered the question to begin the podcast. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So physically, you have been unable to due to the cancer.
Yeah. The puzzle pieces don't fit, and, it's that leads to a lot of other conversations, of course, that being a very focal point of intimacy for a married couple. We've been married 10 years in 10 days. And nearly half of that time, we've been battling this. So it's a lot.
Yeah, man. Well, Danny, thank you for being courageously transparent with that to start out. And so what I'd like to do real quickly is just tell us about your family first, and then let's get into the story of the fight that you guys have been in for a very long time now. So tell us about your wife. You got married almost 10 years ago now. Tell us about your daughters, and we'll go from there.
So my wife's name is Rafaela. People call her Rafi. We got married, like I said, 10 years ago. We've been together 12 years total. She's the one that I met and knew that she was the one. And we knew we were going to have kids, and there was not really any dating. We were just kind of, okay, let's just do this because it was just that match, We met in Los Angeles. I had a gym out there. She was running a restaurant out there, and we met out there, had our baby girls out there. We have 2 daughters today. They're 7 and 9. They, were very young when their mom got sick. So they really haven't seen her healthy that much. And Rafi she's a sprinter all growing up. She was an extremely athletic individual, just a powerful human. She's the most loving mother ever. She's an amazing wife. She's the one that walks in the room and you feel love. That's her. And, lately this cancer has been such that it fades you. Like it fades if the version of you is 100% colorful, and it's it dilutes the color, and that part's heartbreaking because, she's still a mother, she's still a wife, she's still the same person, but she's battling this thing and we've been battling it for so long that you have to hang on to things, and that's really challenging.
Yeah. So you'd mentioned, I'd like to go here first if you're okay with it. You'd mentioned that your daughters have pretty much known her this way for the bulk of their life.
Yeah, so our youngest
And I know that as a father, you're dealing with a lot already. And, I think that's just an added layer that you're stressing with. And I just want you to talk about your perspective, because it's a great reminder for those of us who aren't dealing with something like this to appreciate what we have and the moments that we have. And so if you can just kind of walk through how you have handled such a weight, I think it'll be very powerful for other dads out there.
So I'm I'm wired for thinking about right now. I'm just that way. I'm a terrible planner. If you're asking me to plan something out for you in the future, I'm not the guy to talk to. I know that's not me. And I've failed at that so many times. So being wired for this is helpful, but the moments that's the hardest part, is that you've got to be present in the moment. You've got to be there in your shoes, right here, right now. And that's the part where it's very unsettling, because as a man, as a protector, I want to go out there and fix things. I want to go out there and earn money to pay for our life. I want to provide. I want all these things. And all that's being asked of me at this moment is that I be present with my family. I've literally had all of those things stripped from me. I've been fired twice. We've moved a bunch of times. We've had all of these things, all of the things that like make me feel useful have been taken away. And that is really makes me realize that my greatest focus has to just be in being present with my family. And so that's where I literally put my focus all the time. And praise God, we've been able to keep fighting for this whole time, because
Yeah, man.
that, watching, so here's a story. So, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I can't remember. Um, our youngest let out this like scream, like something really bad happened in a room, and like real bad, like someone's really hurt, broken bone, like bleeding, something. Well, I go run in there to assess what's happening. The girls had like accidentally elbowed each other in the face. Like, it was a silly
Right.
kid
They're
thing that
playing and
happens,
yeah.
right? So one of them's screaming, one of them feels terrible, and neither one of them will tell me what happens. So I'm
Mm,
trying to comfort the one. Um, the other one is kind of in shock because her sister's hurt. Didn't want it to happen, whatever.
right.
Well, then I hear my wife jump up from the other room, who isn't really able to walk that well, and I hear her fall. Well, falls are not good when you have an illness, right? So I'm sitting here holding my child, trying to figure out what's going on, not knowing. I hear my wife fall and hear her crying over there. I hear the dogs scuffle, and it's like, these are the days. It's literally like triage every day. And there's the only thing that I can do is be present, because I don't have the time, the capacity, the wherewithal, the intelligence, any of that to go work. And for me, I decided a long time ago, I was like, listen, if this path goes in the direction I want it to go, if if we find healing, my most valuable contribution is to be with my family.
Yeah.
If this does not go that direction, if this goes south, my most valuable contribution is to be with my family. And
Right.
literally at all costs. And George, like, I've been fired in huge ways twice. We've lost a house, we've moved multiple times, we've relocated. I literally have no focus other than, first of all, God, and second of all, my family. And that's all I do. And some days it's all, like yesterday, I was walking the dog and I was literally like staggering down the street, because it was so disorienting, just all of the emotions, and we had a doctor's appointment yesterday, like all of it. And I literally went home and I fell asleep for like 2 hours. I don't sleep in the middle of the day. Like, I'm 43, I don't need to take a nap, but it's just so much all the time.
Yeah, man. Well,
Long
I
answer
I
to a short
appreciate
question.
you. No, no, it's very helpful because it's not just the cancer, right? It's all of the ripple effects from it and how it impacts your life. And so thanks
Yeah.
for giving us a little bit of a view into what that looks like for you. Because I think for many of us, we don't realize how lucky we really are. The things that, I'm in a lot of ways, this is going to sound a little strange. I'm glad you're in my life, because I'll be thinking about something or stressed about something, and I'll remember like, oh yeah, maybe this isn't so big. And it's not to compare. It's not a game of who's suffering the most, but it's helpful for me in those moments to like remind myself that, hey, look, there's a solution here for me where there isn't for others, right? And to kind of get myself back in gear in a way. And so that can be a very positive force for us as men. So thank you for giving that to us. Why don't we go through and kind of let's just narrate a little bit the sequence of things that has happened to bring you to this moment where you are now, still
Yeah.
battling,
Yeah.
but just kind of the early days, right? Obviously getting the diagnosis. I'm sure that was just in and of itself an absolute bombshell to have to grip with that on the front end and just feeling like, where do we even go from here? So just talk us through the early days, and let's kind of over the next 20 to 30 minutes kind of go through the entire journey so far.
Okay. So, and things, because it's been 4 years, so things kind of,
Sure,
it might
to the
take me a
best of your
second.
ability.
Yeah.
This isn't we're not doing a biography
Yeah.
here
Okay,
necessarily. I just
cool.
want people to understand
I was nervous.
all of the things that you guys have had to do
Yeah.
together as a family, and you're still fighting and you're still together, because it's a lot. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely a lot.
So I'm from Kansas City. We were in Kansas City when all this happened. And so my wife had a growth that wasn't normal. We went in to see a doctor, and she told her that it needed to be taken out. This is 4 Augusts ago when this happened.
Okay.
So
So
basically, we had
2020.
what's up?
So 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a doctor's appointment, knowing that we needed to get something attended to. She said, "You need to have surgery right now." So surgery got scheduled for like 3 days later.
Hmm.
And that was all we knew. We didn't know anything else. So they were either going to do a vulvectomy or a radical vulvectomy. That's all we knew. Right. So she had a mass on her vulva. Um, and so we went in, surgery happens. I'm in the hospital waiting room. I don't know what's happening. They call me in to talk. The doctor does and says, "Hey, we did a radical vulvectomy, which means they took out a lot of tissue in an area where there's not a lot of tissue. And it was cancerous." And I said, "Okay." And at this point, I'm kind of in shock. Like, I'm lucid and I'm talking to her, but
Right.
my wife's not with me. She's recovering from surgery. She's waking up from drugs. And I said, "Okay." And she goes, da da da, and like explained all this stuff to me that I didn't understand,
Right.
obviously. And
Yeah.
she goes, and then she was like, "All right, well, she'll come to here in an hour or so, and then just take her home, and we'll talk next week or something." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like, she has had cancer. You got to tell her that." And she goes, "No, you're going to tell her." And I was like, "Because I can answer any questions. Like, this is what is going on." So literally, so I pick her up. She's coming out of surgery, and if you've ever been around someone coming out of surgery, they're just not with it. They're joking, whatever. Get her in the car, driving her home. Our drive was about an hour. She's like, "Hey, how was it? How did it go?" And I'm just knowing that it's the worst answer we could have. I have to basically avoid the conversation going home, which makes you feel like you're lying. And then take her to my house. Her family was at my house, like her whole family. And so I can't tell them before I tell her. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm just holding on to this fucking bomb of information. And and then finally she comes to at like 8:30 that night, like lucid, like ready to talk. So I got to sit down and I got to tell her that the worst thing you want to hear, which was horrible. There's just no way to do it. So I told her, and then that began this journey down this path. She recovered from that surgery. It had spread to a lymph node. Um, that lymph node ended up growing into the size of a grapefruit on her hip. So like there's a crease. It's called your inguinal crease between your hip and your leg, like where your leg meets your torso. It was right there. So you imagine you can't pull your knee towards your chest because there's this thing there. Well, that broke through the skin. That was um, draining for over a year. And you're talking about an open wound that's that big for a year, and it literally tore its way out. That was horrifying. We ended up going down to Tulsa. She basically lived in Tulsa for 9 weeks, and we did chemo and radiation down there, Cancer Treatment Centers of America. That was successful. The tumor went away. Then we were scheduled for this like massive reconstructive surgery. It was very scary, and they then can't or closed the cancer center, so we couldn't do the surgery. So then we had to find a place to then go pick up this case that was like, who was going to pick up this case? So they sent us to Chicago, terrible experience. We ended up in Atlanta at Cancer Treatment Centers of America there. She did some immunotherapies down there. Um, and did some treatment there for about a year. This region that was kind of attacked from the original thing in Tulsa ended up healing over, which was a miracle. Like, I mean, it was literally dead tissue, carnage, and it literally is now skin. It healed over, which is the surgeon down there was like, I think we're just going to see if it heals. 6 months later, it was healed,
Wow.
which is, I mean, it was amazing. It still is amazing.
Interrupting the episode real quick because I want you to stop and take a moment and consider a donation to Danny and his wife. The link to their GoFundMe is in the description below. Please click it, check it. You can read more about their story. And as you've heard already, they've been battling this for a very long time. Every little bit you can give helps a great deal to them. Please consider a donation. And with that, let's get back to their story.
Trying to think how this went. Then we
And
ended
so,
up,
so at this point, then now you're like, what, 2 years into this battle? Or
yeah,
how
so it's
long?
been like loops. It's been like the loops have been 2 years. So the original diagnosis surgery was about maybe a 4 to 6 month time period.
Okay.
And then the conclusion of that 2 years was the growth of the other tumor, the attacking of it. And then we moved on to Atlanta. And then it was like a lymph node conversation. And then it became a vulva conversation
Okay.
again. Um,
And so already within 2 years, you've been to like what, 4 different sites now trying to get this treated?
yeah, yeah. In multiple cities and like flying all over. And
And
um,
were you bringing the girls with you at this point, or were like
no,
what
they
was
were
like
staying with
just
my
together
parents.
going, or were you going back and forth? Like how did you even
Well,
manage?
when we were in Tulsa, which was like the first real go, um, so Tulsa is 3.5 hours from Kansas City. So
Okay.
I would drive her down on Sunday, and then I would come pick her up on Friday, and I'd bring her back home. So every week for 9 weeks, I would drive back and forth. Um, I was managing a ranch at the time, so like cattle, hundreds of acres, like grunt work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thought I was going to physically like just die because it was like so hard physically all the time and
Yeah.
obviously emotionally and all these things. Um, that job ended up firing me, and I lost my house on the same day or our house. So my house is attached to my job. She had like come through that treatment season, and then I just got fired. And it like, okay. So then we had to find a house, find a job again.
I mean, did your
Um,
work know that what was
yeah.
going
Oh
on?
yeah, of course. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So this is the part that is hard to explain to someone because it's hard to make it make logical sense. I'm going to choose my family every time,
Mm-hmm.
even if I get fired. And I've been fired twice, lost a house once. Um, and the reason that I was fired in both cases was because I chose my family. I did not choose my work.
Mm.
And these people that fired me would never tell you that.
Yeah.
But there's no reasons that they fire, like no valid
Right.
reasons
Yeah,
that they
you weren't
fired me.
like breaking rules or that kind of stuff.
No, but you know, I uh, so let me finish the story and then we can go back and
Yeah.
talk
So
about like that.
it's just like it's so like now you have this extra hurdle on top of all
Yeah. Yeah.
the
So
things.
yeah. And so basically, so then we get where we were in Atlanta.
Yep, and that's about
Um,
2 years in
yeah, and
Atlanta.
then so we go back and forth to Atlanta for about a year. This is like lymph node vulva conversation. It's just kind of around. Had a couple like minor little kind of surgery deals. Um, and then
So she
she
still
ends up,
has cancer, and they're just figuring out what to do about it.
yeah, so it keeps kind of moving. It's always been in her pelvis, but it will go from like a lymph node to her vulva to a lymph node. Like it just kind of like bounces around. It hasn't gone anywhere else,
Okay.
but it just kind of keeps moving, right? And we know that her cells change very quickly. Cancer cells in general change very quickly, but hers are very rapidly changing all the time. So you have to kind of like change modalities to keep ahead of it. Um, so she ends up getting treatment in Atlanta. That kind of runs out, doesn't really work. We do some integrative care in Kansas City for a while. That kind of runs out. Then this is all the same, like lymph node, vulva. But you're talking about, so right now, at this day, we're at present day, it's been over 1,500 days that she's woken up in pain. Most of them bleeding, most of them can't walk, most of them laying in bed. She's never been able to sit in a chair this whole time. She can't sit on a plane. She can't sit in the car. Like in the car, she rides on her back. So like if you were in a seat and you like scooched your butt forward and your feet up on the dashboard, so your
Okay.
back is on the seat, that's how
Yeah.
she rides in the car. I
Wow.
drove her to Texas for a scan and I rented a van so she could lay in a mattress in the back because she couldn't ride, but we had to go get the scan. Not That's just to give like perspective of like
Right.
her day-to-day life. And like the amount of times that I've been in the room laying in bed trying to go to sleep, waiting, and she's in the bathroom weeping because of pain and blood and struggle and no sleep and constipate, all these things. I can't even count them. And I also can't fix that scenario. And it is paralyzing as a man that loves to be a man of utility and a man of purpose and a man that can do things and can fix things. And I love using my hands. You can't do a thing. And it crushes my soul all the time because there's no, there's nothing I can do other than just be present. Uh, Sorry, total tangent.
No, no, it's again, man, no, like no apologies here. It's helpful for us to understand like how hard that is. And to those listening, obviously many of you do not have a similar situation, but you have some difficulty in your life. And I think what you're sharing there, Danny, is the fact that whatever situation we're going through, we all kind of have these painful feelings, especially as husbands and fathers. And I think our default setting, at least in the modern age, is to like bottle that up. Uh, at least that's what I've seen with all the men that I've worked with and talked to.
Yep.
And what I think you're about to also share with is how as painful and difficult as this is, you're not just trying to shoulder it on your own. And so I want to continue getting through the story, but I definitely want to like get to that point later in this conversation. But I do want to kind of like make that little plug for the guys listening that, that you can learn a lot from Danny, not just in the sense of like how to beat cancer. It's life lessons here that go far beyond that
Yeah,
situation.
I appreciate
So
that.
you guys are back now. You've tried integrative care in Kansas City. At this point, so it's like roughly over 2 years now. I mean, how have you been paying for this? How have you been affording to live? Like, how are you guys even surviving
Well, so I
during this period?
originally was working when it all first happened. Um, I got I got fired probably from the ranch, I would say, which was the original kind of bout that we did the original 9 weeks in Tulsa when I was there. So I was working at that time. Months later, like 3 months later, is when I got fired. So then we I get fired the same day, not the day I got fired, but a day or two later, we were going to look at a friend's fifth wheel camper because we were like, hey, we might get a fifth wheel. That'd be cool. They gave it to us.
Wow.
Another friend of ours called us the same day we received the camper and said, hey, we have an empty RV spot on our property. If you guys want to come live. So, like, if you can't see that that's God's hand, I don't know
Right.
what else. Plus, that family are both pastors. I mean, like the
Mm,
this is like I will say it every day. This is God's story. We are just front row, and it literally like I give it all to Him. That's why I don't feel like I need to carry it.
yeah.
I
I
just
think it's powerful, man.
I
And you've
just
shared with us, like, just for those listening, we have a little small group that Danny and I are a part of where we meet every week. And you've shared numerous times with us how like there's been a need and just like somehow someone makes a donation that's for the exact amount you needed and things. And it's just,
yeah
it's hard to just say that that's a coincidence.
Well, so that I'll tell you one story that's pretty crazy. There are a lot of them, but so we needed to get this blood test done. Um, Raffi had been looking for this blood test for a long time. It's hard to find. She wasn't able to find it. She's a very thorough researcher. Like if it's out there, she's going to find it. Come to find out, there's a doctor that sits across the table from me in a Bible study that I've attended for years. Okay, who at his office administers the test. So the answers and the way that we found that was we put up a GoFundMe, which brings me to another question you asked, but we'll answer it later. That the mentor of mine that leads that group shared, which then the guy that was in my group saw, which did not contain anything that said anything about the blood test. He sent me a text message that says, "Hey man, we have all these things we can do." He included the name of the blood test in the text that I said to Raffi. So we went and got it the next day. The blood test is $8,000. We don't have $8,000. We didn't have it. We don't have it. So we did the blood test. He messages me back and says, "Hey man, here's the bill. We can help you guys out. We can take off 20% because of like a employee discount type situation." So we did that. It was like the number was like $6,300. Well, which we didn't have either, right? We didn't have 6,300. And then we get a call from a friend, unrelated, that knows nothing about anything I just told you. Said, "Hey, our church just decided that they wanted to give you guys our monthly tithe from our church. The monthly tithe amount is $6,300." I mean,
Wow.
literally the source of the thing was from a Bible study I've been going to. It came from a church. It is to the dollar. It was the same day.
Wow.
And I didn't have anything to do with it. I just watched it happen. Like I didn't, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It
It's incredible.
100% is God doing it. And so that's how we roll. That's how we ride. And it is God's story. And
Yeah.
I will keep saying it.
Yeah. And obviously he has been sustaining you
Yeah. And well, it's the only
through this,
way
not
that,
just with the
so
financial
yeah.
elements, but
So we've over the course of this 4 years have put up GoFundMe's and done fundraisers at a pickleball tournament. We've done anything to basically help us do this because I'm
yeah.
completely maxed out in my time, like just taking care of my family. And God has shown up, and He has shown up with people, and there have been so many people that have showed up in our lives. You won, George. So thank you. There have been so many people that have continually showed up for us over and over and over again. And I'm saying this in very much monetary generosity, because so many people have given, and we are so thankful for that, because that is the only rock that we stand on when we make decisions moving forward.
Mm.
Like we have the ability to fight for this because of those of you that have shown up for us. Um, and that, people will take our kids. Like right now, we're currently in Texas. People are coming down into town. Like some people, one of our friends has our girls today. She's out with the river. Like this is all orchestrated, and I'm not doing it. I'm just watching it be done, right? And God is sending the people all the time. And it's there's no denying it. I mean, it's literally I love how Hormozy says a stack of undeniable evidence. Like
Mm.
we have this
Mm.
stack of undeniable evidence. And I could talk to you for 22 hours about stories about continually how he shows up over and over and over again. And he's with us. He's been with us the whole time.
Yeah. That'll be your book.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Yeah. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
All right,
So back to
let's
this
yeah,
timeline.
let's narrate through the last, I
Okay.
guess it's about last year and a half now, right? Where
Yeah. So what kind of happens is, let's say like tumor burden would be a good way to say it.
yeah,
Like the tumor burden comes to a place where like integrative care, infusions, you're losing ground. Best way to say it.
because and when you say tumor burden, what you mean is the toll is taken on the body collectively,
Right.
and just
So
the body is not able to do what it needs to do
Yeah.
just
There's
day-to-day living. And so
there's more focus on this cancer than there is for like the health of your
okay,
body. So
so your body is losing the war of attrition.
correct. So most recently, after we kind of like went through this integrative thing, we decided we were going to go get care in Scottsdale. There's a place called Invita out there. This is a different conversation too, but in the medical system, they operate within parameters, and where you are determines the parameters, whether they tell you or not. Like every doctor you go see has a box, and they operate inside the box.
Mm-hmm.
They will not reveal to you what the box is. Typically, some will, most won't, because their money and their security and their business and and them being successful is inside the box,
Yeah.
right? The box exists inside of a map that sometimes you will talk about other things on the map, but most of the time it won't. Well, there's also the map, there's also the territory that's bigger than the map.
Mm.
So you're always talking to these people in boxes who give you these options. They'll never tell you about
They'll
the
say
map,
those are the only options available, and in reality, there could be
but
50.
they're not,
Right.
right? So you get to where you start learning things, and it's like, oh, there's a whole map. There's all this other different stuff that you could do. Well, that's not all the stuff either. But you have to like, and throughout these
Yeah.
years, we've been through so many things of treatment. And by the way, I'm not faulting doctors. Like I'm not like saying they're
It's
bad.
the
Like I'm not.
system.
It is
We've
the system,
on
right?
this exact show, we've had
It
four
is.
or five different people that are
Yeah, I'm
experts on
not.
that.
I'm
We've
just
talked
saying,
about it a lot, and
as the
it's
person.
a problem. There's
Yeah,
a
I'm
big
just
problem
saying,
with the system.
as the person being, on this side or being next to the person on this side, you know, sometimes when the doctor speaks, you don't think it's a two-way conversation. You think they're delivering you. You always have choice. You can always choose to do
Hmm.
something different. You can
Yep.
always ask a question, but it's hard when you're in pain. It's hard, so I think my wife has been very good at like questioning things. And because of that, I've learned to do that too. So it's been really
Yeah.
beneficial. But so we went to Scottsdale, um, which was a pay to play scenario. They don't accept insurance. We had a meeting with the lady and very unabashedly told us it was going to be about $250,000 for 12 weeks of treatment. We didn't have it. Not even close, like decimal place away, right?
Well, I mean,
Um,
the number of Americans that could
uh,
reasonably afford that with their own money is
yeah.
got to
So,
be less than 1%, right? Like, I mean,
so
it's a very
yeah,
small group.
we went home. We actually did a blood test while we were there. It was $2,000 because we were like, we're going to do this. We went home, and I promise you, I knew you when this happened. Um, Within 10 days, we had almost all that money in the bank, and we were driving back to Scottsdale.
Hmm.
And it's all God. There's no other way to like.
That's a lot of money raised in a very short amount of time.
I mean, that's God. It's God. It's
Yeah.
through people. It's like it was unbelievable, and we were able to go fight and
And
um,
you packed up your whole family and moved, right?
yeah, everything. Yeah. So I mean, we kept our house in Kansas City for the time, and then went to Scottsdale. And funny story, a man that is in my Bible study, same Bible study, lives in Scottsdale, and told us we could come live with him
Mm.
while we were there. Which, if you've ever tried to rent a place in Scottsdale, you know that it's literally like pouring money in a giant hole. So that was another like I didn't ask.
Yeah.
It was just it showed up. So we spent time in Scottsdale. They do a little bit kind of different care. They still use, there's still chemotherapy. 4 months there. That brings us to like June of this year. Um, Same kind of scenario. It's more like her vulva and like, okay, so if you were sitting on a saddle, the areas that are touching the saddle are the areas that she has tumors, would be probably the kindest way to say it, right?
Yeah.
It's it. I would say that it couldn't be in a worse spot. Yeah, so that's where it is. So we did Scottsdale. Still are battling. Came back home to Kansas. or Missouri. Energetically, she said, I don't want to be here, because she laid in that bed for like 2 years
Yeah.
and thought she was dying. So I said, okay, great. So we decided to come to Texas, where her sister is, and be near family and pursue treatment here. So we are just on the cusp of that right now.
Yeah. So that's, I forget how many states, a lot of different states,
Yeah.
multiple moves,
Yeah.
dots in between, traveling here and there with the kids, not with the kids, moving your family. So you guys have been through, and I know that's the high notes of everything. We'd be here all day trying to talk about every little thing that's happened, but
Yeah.
just an incredible amount of things you guys have had to overcome. So one of the things that, I would love to hear more about is, how have you maintained your marriage, right? This is such an absolutely difficult thing to have to weigh upon your relationship, especially like we started out with. You can't even be physically intimate with each other due to this, right? And I know that there are other people in that situation, right? And anytime there's a kind of a caregiving situation, that's a reality. But, and you have young children and you're moving all these places, like how have you continued to prioritize your marriage and keep your relationship strong despite all of this battle?
Um, the easiest way I have to answer that question is something that I know I've told you before. Is that I try as hard as I possibly can to stay on the same side of the table.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is the battles that you have when there's an illness like this are such that it creates an exorbitant amount of frustration. And it's very easy to get mad at the person instead of get mad at the thing.
yeah.
And we, don't get me wrong, we've had our tangles, we've had our disagreements, we've been around the block, but it's just not constructive. So I very much when you when you make a commitment, you follow through.
Yeah.
Just end of fucking statement, right? You I chose to marry her, so I will follow through.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be fun. Like, I chose to do that. I actively chose that, and so I will hold, and I will stick, and we'll do it. And then you choose to have kids. Like, you don't just make an agreement and leave. Now, if you know something crazy happens and it breaks whatever,
There's always an exception to every rule, but I see what you're saying is,
I very
you
much
chose this, and it's your commitment that you're going to honor.
yeah, and that's just how it's going to be. And um luckily, like I said, luckily I'm really tired all the time. So the intimacy piece, like, I just want to go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but also, like, we have bigger fish to fry. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
like a good example. I had a buddy text me, I don't know, yesterday or the day before in the morning, like, hilarious text message, just like something all of us do.
Yeah.
Well, when he texted me, we were talking about death. Like very on a very real, tangible,
You and your wife, you mean?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
like a big, hard fucking bear of a conversation.
Hmm.
This is the disconnect in my life, is that I have friends who genuinely care. Like, he's good friends. But the reality of my moment is like, man, I'm not gonna I can't respond to your text message. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's this. And now that I've been out of the workforce for over a year, I feel like we are on a lonely island all the time.
Mm.
And that's not the case. I have support. I mean, I talk to you all the time. I talk to so many people, but it doesn't affect the reality of, like, this is the loneliest thing ever. And she feels lonely, and she's laying in bed sleeping all day, almost every day. And our kids, like, we take them out for whatever, and it's so hard because we're doing life as a family, but it's so separate and so compartmentalized because
Yeah.
of the scenario that it's really like, I'm just like, how do I, as Danny, show up and be on the same side of the table as my wife? How do I do that? How do I do that for my kids? And that's all I care about. And inside of that, folds ego, folds like all these things
Yeah.
that, but there are trade-offs, right? So like if I chose to go to work, I was like, I'm gonna get a job. I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna make a bunch of money. I'll be able to pay for everything. Da 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 da. It's like, cool, man. Your family's gonna dissolve.
Yeah. Who's taking care of them? And
But it's like it's all trades, right? It's trade-offs. And I'm not saying that my answer is the one that everyone has to choose, but I know the trade-offs and I'm not willing to make the other one. And I literally will burn the ships every day of the week
yeah.
to for my family and for God. Every day of the week. And I've done it and I'll do it again. And that's fine. But that's also a very hard place to be, because like it's
Right.
tough. It's not,
Scary.
our days aren't
Yeah.
easy. Like there's not, you know.
The example you gave about same side of the table is
Yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah.
I know that you use that with me to help me through a situation with my wife, and it's such a stark reminder. And I try to remember it now when I'm angry about something or frustrated by something, because most problems in marriage, whether it's cancer or a financial decision or someone's childhood trauma that keeps showing up, whatever the thing is, it's generally the thing that's the problem, not each other.
It is.
And it's so easy to attack your spouse as if they're the problem when really it's something behind that. And that's why for me it helped so much to have that analogy of bring her. You said it like take her seat, pull her around literally, and roll her over next to you on the same side of this big boardroom table. And now you guys are facing it and attacking it together. And I think that is such a powerful example that every husband needs to take responsibility for, because we may have not caused the problem. You didn't ask for cancer, but you're certainly going to do what you can together to beat it together and not attack her for it. Right. And, speaking personally here, my wife struggled. She had severe postpartum after giving birth to our daughter.
Yeah.
And I was so selfish and so broken that I resented her. I blamed her for being unable to be a mom in the way that I expected, right? Instead of having empathy and compassion for the fact that my wife's body and emotional state is just ravaged right now. And so I think for you to have that level of grace and commitment is a strong example for other men to wake up on, because there's probably a handful of people who maybe have it worse than you, and that's like a very small number of people. And again, it's not the comparison game, but it's just that perspective of like, if anyone was ever going to have the reason to kind of throw in the towel, you'd be one of them, right? And yet you're not, and you refuse victimhood mentality because you have to.
Yeah. I think, and I don't like, I'm not speaking like I'm like the perfect one that's always on the same side of the table, like, cause I'm
No one
not.
is. No
This
one
is
is.
just, this is my orientation point. Like if I'm battling, I'm like, that's how I find my solution. And sometimes it takes a long time. Here's an example where I fail all the time. My 7-year old rides an emotional roller coaster like this. I am very apt to get on the roller coaster with her. I don't know why. Apparently, I like emotional roller coasters. So and then once that happens, then it's like this game where it's like, I've become a child. Now we're having this bout.
Right.
Like, my, and it's because like our life is so crazy. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to be on her side of the table. Like, I need to help her, but it requires grace. It requires that you're letting go of your ego, or I'm letting go of my ego. It requires me to hold space for whatever's happening in her life. And I I try to act in grace because I've received grace, a lot of it in many, many, many ways, more so than just this chapter of my life. I've received grace in many ways. So I
Yeah.
try to remember that, like, if I can try to be on the same side of the table as whoever I'm with, and I can move in grace, I will probably make choices that are constructive for my
Yeah.
relationships.
I think
you
it's a
know.
great perspective, man.
Um,
Thank you for sharing all that because I think
yeah,
it's super helpful.
yeah,
My next question is about death.
Whew.
Obviously,
Yeah,
that's a reality that you're faced
yeah,
with. That is a possibility. But more than just death, it's the strength to have the hard conversation with your wife that you need to have. And that's really the point for the husbands listening to this is I think we live in a culture of conflict avoidance.
yeah, for sure.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you're being kind. Right?
No,
Sometimes the best loving thing we can do is actually forcing the issue. So just with the brutal reality for you is that this is it's as serious as it gets. How have you one handled the conversation with your wife to again be on the same side of the table with it, but also to not let it define everything you guys do currently, right? Because I think that that's a risk too. Oh, this could be it. So we're gonna, you know what I mean? Like I know that you have maintained a level of like living in the moment, enjoying what you do have, and not letting it just destroy you because of
yeah,
what could be.
yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about this. So, like 4 years ago, when we first were going into this cancer thing, we very, very much disagreed on our path.
Mm,
I wanted her to do conventional treatment. She did not want to. And I believe that if it's your body, it is your choice. Now, I married her. I have a vote, but at the end of the day, it's her body, right? I wake up and I choose to be married. She wakes up and she chooses to be married. If one of us woke up and chose to not be married, it's your choice. I can't make you choose differently, right? So, in regards to health, and I know people are going to get upset, whatever. I don't care. It is her choice, right? I obviously am married to her. I choose to be with her. I choose to stand beside her. We have children together. Yes, all of these things are interconnected. But when you're dealing with these issues, you have to hold space for two opinions
yeah.
because you have to move forward together. That's part of being on the same side of the table, right? And so, we've had multiple kind of seasons of talking about death, and each time I'd say it becomes simpler and clearer. It's not easy. So, but I think it's really so when you go to a hospital, when you go to a cancer center, everyone there, there's this like, there's no BS, right? Everyone is fighting for their life.
Yeah.
They want to wake up tomorrow. They want to go for a walk. They want to live life. We live in a world of people that are asleep, that don't appreciate waking up in the morning, that don't appreciate what they have. All the while knowing any one of us, you, me, any one of us could get hit by a truck and be done today.
Yeah. Or
So
a storm or whatever.
this storm, right? Exactly. Right now, Helene, God bless everyone that's lost their lives from that. Um, but if we're not moving forward, thinking like you have to be okay with tomorrow not happening.
Yep. It's a gift.
You have to like, and if you're not, you're not living inside of the moment. Like I tell people like if you can swim inside the moment, like you're living like you should be. Because in order to swim inside the moment of what's going on right now, you've got to be involved, right? You have to be. And if today's your last day, you've got to be present inside the day. Like you have to. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have to, but
You
this is your
should.
last chance. So we've had those conversations, and then for me, it's like, well, what if it's my last day? Because it could be. And I'm silly to think that just because I'm walking out of the hospital, just because I'm going to get in the car, that I'm going to be here tomorrow too. You know what I'm saying? Like no one knows. Um, but those are hard things. Those are very hard conversations. Uh, but you need to have them. And those are conversations that there's no right answer for any of it. Talking about, okay, if this is my last season, how does this go? And that's what kind of I've, not because of that, but because of that, it's like lately, I don't have really anger about all of this. I'm just really sad all the time. I feel like I wake up and I shovel sadness all day. And it's hard to do anything. It feels like you're like have like a wet comforter on you and you're trying to like
Yeah.
get out of it, but you can't like get yourself free. And you know to to be a husband and be a dad and operate, there it's so hard. And it's the sadness. I used to be angry about it. I Like when I was on the ranch, I would literally punch round hay bales for a long time because I didn't know what to do with all of the in this time. I've found men like yourself, and I have other people in my life that I'm constantly in conversation with and constantly telling them, what's going on. And anymore, like a long time ago, Rafi and I just decided to stop holding punches when people ask stupid fucking questions. So like, here's an example. It's happened so many times. I'm a price chopper. I'm buying all of the gauze, like the 4x4 gauzes. I have 7 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Lady at the cash register, you thinking about hurting yourself? Like, what? No, my wife has cancer. And then she feels bad. And I'm like, don't ask a stupid ass question. Like people do, people say the craziest stuff, and it's like, eventually it's like, here, I'll just tell you, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, side note, but yeah, I think the conversations are really challenging, but they're also, they're very fruitful. Um, so what's that book? There's a book. It's called Warrior Poet. It's by, what's his name? John. You know who he
John
is.
Lovell. Oh, the
John
Warrior
Lovell.
Poet Way.
Warrior Poet, yeah. And in that book, he challenges you to write your death letter. And I was reading through that book, and I've not passed that page in the book because I never finished what I was going to do. And the concept of that is, if you didn't show up tomorrow and you needed to write a letter to your family, what would you say? So spent I've spent no less than 10 hours trying to complete that exercise.
Mm.
But what happened was I had written my letter to my wife, and then I started to write letters to my kids. Well, they're 7 and 9. So you don't talk to a 7-year-old how you talk to a 10-year-old. And you don't talk
Yeah.
to a 10-year-old how you talk to a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old. So I found myself writing letters upon letters upon letters. And I was crying the whole time. But what it did for me was it brought me into this appreciation for now. I wasn't going to cry, George.
Okay, man.
We just like don't appreciate the moment where you can like go get in the car and go get a coffee. Like, I can't even take my wife into a coffee shop because she can't walk long enough to go to a coffee shop. To think that people don't appreciate these things is really hard, especially when, like, you know, my wife can't get out of bed. She can't pick up her kids. She can't run with her kids. She can't cook dinner. She can't take a bath. She can't walk up or downstairs. None of it. And you know, people don't appreciate anything, and that's a hard thing to contend with. But that makes you appreciate the moment. You know.
Thanks for being courageously transparent, man,
Yeah.
and and sharing. I know this is
Yeah.
extremely difficult, and I am with you. There is so much that most of us have to be so grateful for, and we do take it for granted a lot. And I
And
and I
me
say
too.
that, I'm pointing the finger at me.
Me too.
It's very easy to get wrapped up into our own pain and our own perspective and totally miss the fact that there's still a lot to be thankful for. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I think it is a great reminder for
Yeah.
all of us. So what I'd like to, I guess, just
Hold
what's
on. I got one
next?
more story.
Okay. Yes.
I just thought of something. So I was fortunate enough to sit down with a guy who has cancer, and his wife is the caretaker, and they have kids. Just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and he told me, he goes, don't underestimate the power that your presence has with your family. Like, and I'm not talking about things that you do. I'm not talking about, it's literally like just being in the same room. And I know that we as a society fail to focus on that,
Yeah.
especially as men, because we want to provide. We want to, you know, have all the nice stuff, make all the money, have the great body, whatever the fuck, who cares? But all of that is not in service. Well, it depends on how you look at it. It has to be in service of the right things.
Yeah.
And if just your presence, like I just found out, and you don't even know this yet, that one of our friends committed suicide. Not my friend, not our friends, one of our friends. You don't know the person.
Yeah. I knew what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify. Um, Father of 3 kids, um, not present anymore. And that's all that matters. And we forget that. And until you consider, this is why I tell my story, because I hope that someone can hear it and not have to fucking deal with the shit we have to deal with to realize it. Because when we were in the cancer center in Scottsdale, you're talking a room full of 20 women that are on whatever, chemotherapy, whatever they're doing. They all have families, they all have husbands, they all have kids. Like, what's happening here? You've got all these women that have these terrible illnesses. You've got men that feel emasculated in their lives, and then you've got the poor kids. Like, what's happening? We have a huge problem, and the only thing that matters is that you're present. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter your house. It doesn't matter any of that stuff. Like, if you're with your kids, that's all that matters. You're with your family, and I'm in a season that's all that I focus on, and I feel blessed to know and to be that plugged into this moment, because for so much of my life I was not plugged into that. And I feel like it it feels like I like watched a movie or something, like wasn't even there.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation. But our presence, and when he told me that, it was like it it was really I appreciated that a lot, because it was coming from the one who has cancer,
Yeah.
instead of, you see, like we could talk to each other
Yeah. Yeah.
as equals, as men, from different perspectives, which was really interesting, you know.
Yeah. That's why we call it the Present Fathers Podcast. Is
Yeah.
that's what makes the difference. And when we say present, it's not just physically there; it's engaged with and paying attention to. So yeah, man, great example. What's next for you guys? I know the battle's not over.
No, it's
What's ahead?
not. So um we went to an oncologist yesterday, here in Texas, and they have a path that they want to send us down. I've not seen her tumor load this great in all of this as it is right now, which is terrifying. Um, I, I won't say terrifying because I'm not scared. It's just really sad. It's just sad. But it is where we are at this moment. So we are going to pursue care here in Texas. I thought this whole thing was going to be over 4 years ago. I did not think we would be still battling this thing. But one thing that put some of it in perspective for me was someone in the medical industry said if you're in bed for one day, it takes you 18 days to come back. Well, she's been in bed for years at this point. So we've got a long road, which is okay. That is the path we are on. That is okay. But and shouldn't say but and we have to find a way to make this work, and that has a lot of moving parts. So we're here figuring it out, and we'll just continue. We, have tried to get the word out again with the GoFundMe and able to just support us because, as an example, there are these pads. They're called ABD pads, like this big. She'll go through a box of 50 in like a day and a half.
Goodness.
So I'm not kidding you. Like the room that you're sitting in right there, she has gone through that room full of gauze at least, if not double that room. I mean, the amount of wound care supplies, like it is insane. Like the sprays and the things and this and that and like whatever. It's like every single day, tons of those because all the drainage, all the stuff goes there. I mean, for her to have been battling open wounds for basically 4 years, 5 years, and not, have gotten an infection, like I don't know if there's a person out there that is more versed in wound care than my wife. And it's not in an easy area. It's not like here on your arm, where you can just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, put a
Right.
Band-Aid, we're cool, like it's in the worst place. You can't even see it really. So we're in the middle of it, man. We're not out of the woods. I'm hopeful that if we can bring the tumor burden down through some treatment options, we can get her her vibrancy and her health back so that you've kind of got like the health and you've got the tumor load. Right now I think the
Right.
tumor load
Yeah.
is rising. We need the health to rise, so we need to bring the tumor burden down, and then we can start, then it's infusions and eat it just there's all of these things.
Right.
um it's so layered. I think the reason we are here though is that we've never just focused on family and joy and God and nature. And that is what we're doing now. Yes, we're pursuing cancer treatment. Yes, of course we are. In the best and most exacting way we can find.
Yeah.
But there are things that pour life into her that have not been really they've been in our lives, but not really the focus. And now they are the focus. Because I hate to say it, but it doesn't seem like the medical system is trying to fix anybody really
Yeah.
at this point. I mean, but we'll fight. We're here to fight, and we're all in. Um, I think if this story can stand for something, for someone to learn something and learn to move differently in their life, great.
Well, Danny, thank you for being giving of your time and your story and
Of
sharing your
course.
experience.
Yeah.
How can we give back to you?
I mean, there are a lot. Honestly, sharing the story is I think the best thing. We have a GoFundMe, of course, if
Which
you
we're
can.
linking to this video. So
Yeah,
wherever you're
if you
watching or
can,
listening, it's in
if
the
you can
description.
donate, just know that that is more than you'll ever know for us. The amount of, I would say, the amount of stress that we go through on a daily basis without any financial like input. Like if there was no finances, the stress is almost unbearable. And to think that there like could be a day where it's like I have to go back to work. I don't even. It doesn't even fit like into my brain, right? And it's not because like I'm not being lazy, like I'm exhausted every day, like it
You're a
used
caregiver
up, like
full
I'm,
time.
and but please share a story. That's why we talk about it, because I don't believe that this type of suffering, this level of battle is possible unless there's positive that can come from it.
Mm,
I don't believe that God would put someone in this place if there wasn't redemption, if there wasn't miracles. Like it, I just don't believe it. So please share our story. Please donate to the GoFundMe. Please help in any way you can. Um, and if that's coming on a pot, well, whatever. I'm happy to do whatever I need to do.
yeah.
I just, we're it hasn't been this bad, and this is our, let's say, our third loop of really aggressive
Hmm.
moments, and that's terrifying.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we close, Danny?
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it, George. It's been great. I'm happy to, share. I really am grateful for the opportunity and for our relationship. And it's, yeah, it's been my pleasure.
I love you, bro. I'm
Love you
proud of
too,
you.
man.
You're a
Appreciate that.
very strong example of what it means to be a strong family leader despite what's going on around you. So I just want to commend you for that.
I
And
appreciate
again,
it.
thank you for sharing your story so that we can learn from you and be better men ourselves.
I
So
appreciate it, man.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
To
bro.
everyone listening and watching, please go check out the GoFundMe. They definitely need your help. If you can give it, share it with others. If you can't give, share it anyway. And we're praying and believing that healing is around the corner for them. And Danny, I just again thank you for your friendship and the willingness to share so that
Of
others
course.
can learn.
Thank you, brother.
Love you, man.
All right. Love you,
All
man.
right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close. Please check out the GoFundMe. Please support. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.